Hello, everyone. This is Mike from Dimensional Walking. Today we're going to do a video on kind of a subject that I've talked about a little bit before, but I'm going to do a full video on this one. This is I call it the Canadian Roswell event. And it's the Shag Harbor UFO incident of 1967. And I dug through and I got some witness accounts of what actually happened. I think you'll find it pretty interesting. So let me set the scene. This is October the 4th on 1967. It's in a quiet fishing village called Shag Harbor in Nova Scotia. So the night sky is shimmering with stars, and the air is crisp with the scent of salt water. Suddenly, tranquility shatters. Witnesses, including lighthouse keepers, fishermen, housewives, see this low-flying, brightly lit object plummeting towards the village, or the village, and in this case, the harbor. Okay. A booming crash echoes across the water, followed by a plume of yellow foam, the famous yellow foam. Okay, because this yellow foam thing is still highly puzzling, and it may be the only thing in this particular case that is sort of left behind. Okay, and we'll go into that whole scenario. This wasn't just a crash. It was panic and curiosity that gripped the town basically at the same time. Um, Initial reports, of course, was it was a plane, a meteor, even a Soviet aircraft or a spacecraft, maybe. But soon, whispers, came around that it was possibly a UFO had crashed. So immediately, pretty much immediately, the Canadian military sprung into action. And one of the things was that people thought, wow, they really got there quickly. They were like, apparently, maybe they were tracking whatever this was because they were there, it seemed like in minutes, which normally, since this is not, down the block from a military base, it probably would have normally took quite a bit of time. But everybody that I've read in these witness accounts seem to indicate that the military got there very quickly. Um, so so they were dispatching divers um, into the water to see what they could find. So days turned into weeks, and search yielded nothing but empty silence. No debris, no wreckage, no bodies, no lingering. In fact, eventually, the lingering yellow foam disappeared. So it was pretty strange. It's still pretty strange today. So there's always been these comparisons that this particular event in Shag Harbor was actually Canada's Roswell. Well, there is some similarities, no doubt about it. There was military involvement. I talked about. There was eyewitness accounts, and of course, there was kind of this uh, disappearance of actual evidence. Now, here's where the difference is a little bit, as you probably know, is that in Shag Harbor there really was no evidence per se. Now, the yellow foam hung around for a while. I think it was like a week to 10 days, and then it was gone. I don't know if somebody grabbed some samples of it to see what it was. I can only assume the military did that, but I've never heard any kind of evidence what it was. Okay. So in Roswell, of course, there were debris that was collected. Now, it wasn't really made public, and basically the ship itself or whatever crash was taken away and basically disappeared. So it never was uh, given to the public. Of course, there was all this stuff about the balloons and the dummies and all this other stuff that they brought up later on after the initial report that something strange, like maybe a UFO, had crashed there. The government quickly or reasonably quickly tried to cover it up by bringing in a news story. So anyway, so of course here, the theory started to run crazy, and it was pretty amazing. Again, there was speculation maybe it was a weather balloon, um, some type of military plane, some kind of prototype experimental plane maybe crashed. and that's why the military maybe covered it up. So the Shag Harbor, the whole thing pretty much remains a big puzzle. Okay, there's been the lack of this concrete evidence, uh, but there's all kinds of speculation, and of course, with the speculation, this has been kind of a part of the Canadian folklore of UFOs and high strangeness. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the some of the witnesses because some of these are pretty fascinating. So from the lighthouse. Okay, so there's a guy that was the lighthouse keeper, and his name was John Nickerson. And so John watched in awe as four, as he called them, orange lights zigzag and darted across the sky before plummeting into the water with a tremendous explosion. Okay, he reported seeing this large fiery mass beneath the surface for several minutes. Now, kind of interesting. How does he, below the surface of the water, he could still see fire? I don't know what exactly that would mean, but that's what the witness account said. Um, so anyway, well, let's imagine Nickerson is peering out of his lighthouse on this crisp night, live with these rhythmic waves and just kind of the normal stuff that this guy would see from his lighthouse. Then suddenly, darkness kind of splits open. It was not from lightning, but from these four fiery orange uh, orbs dancing erratically across the sky. And he said they weaved and they darted, defying the laws of physics before plummeting into the inky depths below with a tremendous boom. All of the witnesses pretty much always talk about this boom, and that was very consistent. It was a very large explosion. Okay, so then there was the LeBlanc siblings, sisters. And they saw this huge fireball come down out of the sky and hit the water with a deafening roar. They described the lights as changing colors from white to orange to red and moving erratically before the crash. The LeBlanc siblings were in awe and terror. They were young siblings, so they must have believed this was a scene right out of a storybook that come to life. The behemoth of fire, this large, unlike any comet or shooting star, streaks down from the heavens, illuminating their bedroom window with this eerie glow. And the earth, basically, they said, just trembled, leaving them speechless with a mixture of awe and primal fear. So these two siblings were in their bedroom, probably asleep, and suddenly this thing hit, and they could apparently lit up their room, and then they felt the impact of the thing hitting the water, whatever it was. And then it was Evelyn MacDonald. She was awakened by, of course, this large noise, and she looked out and saw an object, a big cigar, all lit up. Okay, so she saw some kind of a structure. Okay, and who knows what that was, but it was apparently on fire. Okay, and it was descending rapidly towards the harbor area. She saw it strike the water and leave this yellow foam on the surface of the harbor. So picture this. This Evelyn MacDonald, she jolted awake by the sound that shakes every foundation of her home. Because she mentioned that just like the siblings did. She stumbles out of the bed and squats through and squints through the darkness and witnesses a sight that defies explanation. A colossal illuminated cigar glides silently through the air, leaving a trail of sparks in its wake before vanishing into the churning water. The yellow foam leaves behind a speculatory reminder of, of this impossible object that just graced their sleepy village. So again, she was asleep, woken up. Apparently, it made some noise and sound that made her wake up, and then she was able to see it hit the water. So that's interesting. Think about that once. It wasn't just the sound of it hitting, hitting the water. There was a sound before that. Okay, from the sea. So there was this fisherman out on the apparently out on the water at the time too, and his name was James McDonald. I don't know if that's a relative of Evelyn MacDonald, but maybe it was. Who knows? While out in the water, he saw this big ball of fire fall from the sky and disappear into the waves. Um, so, anyways, James, of course, had, he was this fisherman, and apparently he had been doing this for many, many years. And of course, he never had seen anything like this. And he's been apparently had, been in countless severe storms and had many close calls. Yet nothing prepared him for the sight that greets him on this fateful night. The ball of fire, unlike any natural phenomenon he had ever witnessed, plummets from the heavens and disappears beneath the waves. The eerie silence that follows amplifies the disquiet, leaving him with the question that will haunt him for years to come. What in Neptune's name did did I just see? So, anyways, this is a profound experience for all these witnesses. So here's some additional things. There were several witnesses that mentioned kind of a whistling sound accompanying the object on its descent. Now, maybe that's what Evelyn MacDonald heard. She heard something that made her wake up before it actually hit the water. Some reported smelling metallic or rubber burning odor after the crash. Interesting. And then there was this Royal Canadian Mounted Police constable named Ron Pound. And he also witnessed the lights in the sky when he was driving towards Shag Harbor that evening, describing them as four white lights in a diamond formation. Okay, so that's very different than the other witnesses I told you. He's got a formation, he's got four white lights. Okay. So anyways, so they're doing these, and he becomes this witness to this aerial ballet, as he calls it, of them dancing around, and they were dancing around and moving around and going out of this. He calls it this kind of perfect diamond formation, and then going and dancing and doing so. To him, there's no doubt that this was possibly controlled by something. This was not a meteor falling out of the sky or a craft that got on fire and hit the thing. He saw it as actually a formation, I guess a formation of UFOs, right? Um, so again, he talks about this, and he says it was far more. He that it was far more in some type of control than just a random meteor or malfunctioning craft. So he was quite certain there was something controlling these vehicles, these whatever it was that would crash. Additionally, the military investigated the site for many months and added credibility to the event. Um, anyways, they all just there these are just a few of the eyewitness accounts, and by the way, there was many more. I typically don't want to go more than 15 minutes, so I kind of limited some of the witness accounts, but there was many more. um Varying, and there were varying descriptions from cigar shapes to fiery balls, and that this adds the intrigue and leaves room for this interpretation of what it could have been. But this Shag Harbor incident is really worthy of consideration, of being a major. It probably was the most talked about, and still is one of the most talked about events in Canada as far as UFO goes. So, anyways, with all that said, happy trails until we meet again. Bye bye.